Gamers, I have a question for you. What causes a good video game to fail? We all like to point and laugh at the Concords and the Star Wars Outlaws of the world, but it's easy to tell why those games fail. They're not very good. But what about a game like Marvel's Midnight Suns? A game that is pretty cool and drastically underperforms its expectations. Well, there can be a couple different reasons. There can be misconceptions about the game, a lack of marketing, even a poorly chosen release date. Or in some cases, all three of those things. I have not seen a game get sabotaged this hard by its own release since, like, Titanfall 2. For those of you who don't remember or are too young to know, Titanfall 2, a first-person shooter, came out, like, right after Battlefield 1 and whichever Call of Duty was that year. While Titanfall 2, though, has gone on to gain kind of a cult following and manages to actually still be fairly popular even today, like 8 years later, Midnight Suns has not had that happen yet. And that's a shame because it's pretty great. So today, I'd like to tell you about it. And also, extend a bit of a peace offering, I suppose, to some Marvel fans who I made rather angry in my last video. And yes, it admittedly was not my best take. Midnight Suns is a tactical, turn-based strategy game with base management elements developed by Firaxis, and it is not Marvel XCOM. I'm going to repeat that, just so you completely understand me. It is not Marvel XCOM, despite how it may sound when I describe it. If I had to compare it to anything, I would say it's probably more like Marvel Persona or Marvel Fire Emblem. While the gameplay in the missions certainly has some shades of XCOM to it, first of all, it's a deck builder, and by far the biggest difference between Midnight Suns and XCOM is everything that happens between the missions. What do I mean by that? In XCOM, you'll spend, let's say, 20 minutes on a mission shooting some aliens, and then when you're done, you come back to base. You promote a couple soldiers, you maybe start a new research project, but then pretty much right away, you're back to scanning for your next mission. While there are many interesting and important decisions you'll make at your base, you don't actually spend a whole lot of time there. Midnight Suns, on the other hand, you are going to spend, say again, 20 minutes beating up some Nazis, and then you go back to base. Once you get back to base, you're going to watch a lengthy cutscene of all of the characters involved explaining what just happened, how it's important, what the bad guy's been doing, etc., etc. Once that's done, there's a good chance some or all of the characters involved are going to want to have some dialogue with you, so through some dialogue trees. And then once that's done, you're going to be unleashed into the Abbey. Once you're in the Abbey, you're free to kind of do whatever you want. Maybe you'll go to the Forge and watch another cutscene of Iron Man and Doctor Strange bickering with each other. And then you can spend some time going through all 15 of the different upgrade systems that the game has. Once that's done, maybe you can go chat with some of the other superheroes around who want your attention. Then you can go hang out with Spider-Man for a while, build some new gadgets, and then once all that's done, you can curl up by the fire and read a good book with Wolverine. After that, you go to bed, and there's a good chance that your night will be interrupted by another cutscene of your demon mom trying to seduce you to the dark side. Once you wake up, there will probably be some new conversations available, and don't forget to do your daily sparring, and maybe another cutscene here or there. Finally, there's a good chance that at some point during this whole process, you're going to be distracted by something shiny out in the Abbey and go explore the grounds for a bit. Because the Abbey is like the crypt from Mortal Kombat, with how many secrets and collectibles there are to discover out there. And all of this is why I say the game is more like Marvel Persona than Marvel XCOM. There's a lot of this sort of story, slice-of-life stuff going on in between all of the combat missions. And this is not a negative comment. This is not a bad thing. It's just different. I actually liked all of this stuff a lot. It ended up probably being my favorite part of the game. But don't go in expecting Marvel XCOM. This game does have very positive reviews on Steam, but if you just sort by the negative ones, a lot of the negative comments
are people saying, I didn't know this game had this much story. I went in to punch stuff, and then it wasn't what I wanted. So just make sure you go in with the right expectations. But expectations of story mean nothing if the story sucks, so how is it? Pretty good. It's a solid 7 out of 10. It's a bit cheesy, kind of predictable, your typical save the world affair, but it gets the job done, it's fun, it does have some personal connections between you and the bad guy that I like. And who is that bad guy?
Lilith. Blessed Mother.
Gozer?
Lilith, mother of demons, harbinger of the midnights.
Yeah, it's Lilith, the mother of demons. Where have I seen that one before? Actually, you know what? To their credit, this game did come out first. But Diablo 4 did do it better. That is probably the single biggest issue I had with the story of this game. Lilith is okay, but she's just not very threatening. You do have a personal connection with her, as I said, because she is your mother. Along with being the mother of demons, does that mean you're a demon? Sort of. We'll get there. But literally the first cutscene that she appears in, Doctor Strange just, like, as soon as she starts doing her bad guy monologue, he just, like, force shoves her back into the portal she came out of. It's just hard to be intimidated by a villain who is literally hand-waved aside the first time they show up on screen. It's just not doing it for me. Now, this Lilith...
Sin is their birthright. My children. The lords of hell are coming to devour our world. Break the chains and be beautiful in sin.
Resist! Resist her temptation!
Now that is how you make an entrance. And I'm using Lilith as an example here, obviously because, yes, they are both Lilith, but also because it is just a really good example of what Midnight Suns gets wrong with their villain. You need to have a good entry to your villain, a good intro to your villain. Otherwise, they're just not that scary, and there's not a whole lot of motivation to really try to stop them. And of course, between missions, you know, the guys are going to say, oh, Lilith, I know we just, like, snapped our fingers and she was gone the first time, but trust us, she's gotten way stronger. But you never actually see that, so it's kind of that old filmmaking thing, show, don't tell. Show me she's gotten stronger, don't just tell me that between missions. She's just not very threatening. Anyway, I did mention that she's your mom, which means that you are part demon, and you are a part demon hunter. You hunt demons. Specifically, your mom the first time, and then you died, and then Doctor Strange brought you back to life 300 years later. It's a bit weird, but just bear with me, okay? I actually really like the Hunter, because the Hunter is actually her own character. Despite having a customizable appearance, they do have, you know, dialogue and a personality. I should say, I did play as the Femme Hunter, so I don't know how the male one compares, but the female one is actually pretty funny. They do play it, you know, pretty standard fish out of water, because she's been dead for 300 years. But her VA with the just completely flat delivery, it got a couple chuckles out of me, I can't lie.
Tony, that's Carol and Dr. Spooky over there. Here to help.
Wanda is troubled.
I'll go.
You'll need my help, of course.
Then let us make haste, Dr. Spooky. Our hunt begins now.
And there is some actual character development of her getting over her mommy issues. So, I like the Hunter. However, let's be honest. You're here for the Marvel characters. So let's talk about the Marvel characters. Because this game has a lot of them. You've got some Avengers, Doctor Strange, Iron Man, Captains Marvel and America, the Hulk. There are the Midnight Suns proper, consisting of Blade and some teenagers. There's some X-Men here and there, Spider-Man and Venom. Deadpool's here, and my god, is that...
Looks like you're getting into shape. It's still not a great shape, but it's something.
The dialogue in this game is mostly cheesy, kind of like the story, and again, I'm fine with that. This is a video game based on comic book characters. I didn't go in expecting Oscar-worthy dialogue.
Yeah, we're happy to have you. I mean, as long as the shop doesn't become a Stark subsidiary, I'm good.
Scout's honor.
Then welcome to shop class, Tony.
The interesting thing to note with the dialogue in this game is that the characters who are part of the Avengers, like the MCU Avengers, they talk like the Avengers. Like, we all know and make fun of how, you know, every single line of dialogue in the MCU movies is like a quip or sarcastic comment of some sort. Yeah, they talk like that in the game, but then the other characters talk like normal people.
Tony, I've been noticing a recurring gamma spike.
You see, this is why you shouldn't eat spicy food, Bruce.
Localized in the West Village.
So it's kind of weird, because we all make fun of it, but you never really notice just how obnoxious it is until it's placed directly beside people who talk like people. That being said, there are actually pretty good representations of the versions of those characters that you know and at least tolerate. They look pretty much the same, they talk the same, they act the same. Obviously, different voice actors, okay, they can't afford the real ones, and I just cannot picture Brie Larson sitting down to voice a video game character. My bad. Apparently, Brie Larson voiced the Paradigm in Fortnite Battle Royale, who has a whopping 14 lines of dialogue. I think Tony Stark has got to be my favorite one. While yes, the voice actor is clearly doing kind of a third-rate Robert Downey Jr. impression, he's actually pretty good at it, and it's kind of funny at times.
Tony, was that a gamma burst? Why am I reading a gamma burst coming from inside the tower?
Not to worry, everything is fine, all part of the plan. Bruce, what the hell is going on down there?
And I think he's just the most interesting one, because Tony Stark, he's usually like on top of things, but you take the science guy and you put him in a magical haunted abbey, and he's pretty uncomfortable, and I actually kind of like that a lot. I think it's neat. And I think one of the things that sells the cheesy dialogue in this game is that the voice cast actually does a pretty great job for the most part. Steve Bloom as Wolverine, perfect. Laura Bailey as Magic, great. Michael Jai White as Blade, awesome. Easily my favorite and the best performance has to be Nolan North as Deadpool, though.
You and I are both...
The most attractive heroes in the Abbey? You read my mind.
No. There is an ongoing discussion about whether we are alive.
Technically, that makes us zombies. What do you think about that?
Reprising his role from the 2013 Deadpool game that I completely forgot about until I played this one. And that means that since that game came out in 2013, Nolan North has played Deadpool longer than Ryan Reynolds. That doesn't really mean anything, I just thought it was kind of interesting. When you decide, however, you've had enough of lounging by the pool with Blade, it's mission time. You always have several missions available at your command table thing, both story missions, and my god, there are so many side missions. I don't know if they're like randomly generated or if there are a set number of them, but select one, probably watch a cutscene, and then it's time for some superhero action. That is to say, PG-13 violence. Each mission consists of generally 2 or 3 sort of separate combat encounters where you control your squad of 3 heroes, beating up mostly a lot of goons and henchmen, and the occasional, actually pretty cool boss fight. While it is turn-based, and you can tell it's clearly made on the same engine as the XCOM games, the big difference is that, as I said at the beginning, it is a deck builder. Every turn, you draw 5 cards, and you have the option to redraw 2 of them, and you can move 1 character. And you can play 3 cards every turn. Your deck is comprised of abilities from the different heroes. Each hero has 10 available cards, and of those you can select 8, but you can select, multiple copies of the card as long as it doesn't exceed 8. So, you can have 2 copies of one ability and then 6 other ones for a total of 8. The exception is the Hunter. She does not have 10 cards, she has about 7 million cards, because this game has a moral choice system. And that moral choice system, depending on whether you pick light or dark options, affects which cards she gets to use in combat. And the thing I really like about this is that the gameplay also impacts that moral choice system. If you use a lot of light cards in combat, your balance is going to be pushed towards the light side. You can't pick all of the edgy dialogue options and then also be a healer in combat. The game actually forces you to stick to your guns in that regard, and I appreciate that. Cards, though, can have all sort of effects besides just doing damage. For example, quick cards. If you play a quick card and it kills an enemy, then it doesn't consume one of your 3 plays for the turn. So theoretically, if you draw a bunch of quick cards, you could wipe the whole board in one turn. Pretty cool. Knockback cards are also fun. There are tons of environmental hazards on every map, so if you kick somebody and they fly backwards into an explosive barrel, it'll do a lot more damage and potentially take out other enemies. My favorite hazard, though, is other enemies. You can throw enemies into each other, and that's pretty fun. By far my favorite card, though, is the subscribe button. Playing that card will give you a +5 to your entertainment bonus. And then finally, in regards to the combat system, there is heroism. I think it's heroism. Basically, it's just a pretty simple resource system. Your basic weak cards generate heroism. Your more powerful cards spend it. That's it. It's a pretty neat system overall. It's not super deep, not super complicated. I like it. The one thing that does disappoint me, though, is that it's kind of just too easy, the game as a whole. The removal of the cover system and the just fewer number of abilities and enemy types means that the game is not nearly as deep or tactically challenging as the XCOM games. If you can't tell, I'm quite a fan of the XCOM games. And part of why I love those games is that they are really hard. Oh my god. They will absolutely kick your teeth in if you do not play it smart. And that's kind of the one thing I wish this game has that it really doesn't. It does also make sense, though. I'm a bit conflicted here, because while I would like it to be more difficult, it would also be super lame to have the Hulk and Ghost Rider hiding in full cover from a bunch of goons every round. So I understand why they did it this way. I'm just a masochist, is my point, basically. Actually, there's one exception here, which is the boss fights. There's quite a few boss fights, and some of them are really cool. They are more challenging, with the bosses having lots of health, and they don't show you who they're going to target, so you have to be a bit more reactive. I like that a lot, and some of them are just really creative and cool. I know it sounds obvious to say that the boss fights are harder than the goons, but we live in a world where developers will turn a murderous raccoon into a healer. Nope, not going down there again. That's Marvel Midnight Suns. It is a cool game that you should check out if you like strategy games, and Stardew Valley. I think it's a bit of a shame that this game kind of flopped. I didn't even know this game came out when it did. Like, I was excited for this game because, as I said, I love the XCOM games, and I was doing my, like, annual is XCOM 3 in development Google search at one point, and I saw this game had come out, like, 6 months ago, and I was like, what? What do you mean it was out? So I bought and played it immediately. But still, this game just did not have the marketing. I don't know what happened. The developers blamed it on the card system, but I really don't think that's the case, because I think the card system's pretty cool. But either way, I don't know. I'm not a marketing guy. I don't know how that works. I don't know how things work. I just stand here and yap into a microphone, alright? So that does it for me. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe. If you played Midnight Suns, let me know what you thought about it. And why you think nobody else played this game. I will be uploading more videos shortly. So yeah. Goodbye.